This is Tony T here from Tony'sPicks.com with our college football pick show for Week 11. This is part 3, 10 more games for you for Saturday's action. That gives us 30 more on the site for Saturday. For more free pick videos, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Lots of free picks on the channel for myself and team of cappers here at Tony'sPicks.com, making it a great channel to subscribe to. Hit us up with that like, that thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. Then visit our site, Tony'sPicks.com. We are a multi-capper site showcasing top performers in our industry. Click the links to the hot cappers, get signed up to long-term passes. You see our top performers up there, guys like Sean Higgs, DeAndre Bryan has been hot, Kevin Thomas, Ron Crawford on the leaderboards as well, Chris as well. Latest premium picks here, center of the page with best bets and more. We are locked and loaded for this card here on Thursday. And, of course, our promo code TonyT at checkout will knock off that 15%. The link is in the description to get signed up. Let's go ahead. Let's get this one underway. All right, we get started here with Oregon and Iowa. Of course, this one here will be played on Saturday afternoon. All right, taking a look here at Oregon coming into this one. 7-1 after a 21-7 home victory against Wisconsin. Ducks were limited through the air and rushed for 203 yards for 4.5 yards a carry. On defense, they held the Badgers to 86 passing yards with 110 rushing for 3.8 yards a carry. Dante Morton just 9 of 15 for 86 yards. Iowa 6-2 after a 41-3 home victory against Minnesota. The Hawkeyes were limited through the air and rushed for 133 yards for 3.7 yards a carry. On defense, they held the Golden Gophers to 133 yards with great work against the run and pass. Mark Winahowski here, 12 of 19 passes for 135 yards with a touchdown. The Hawkeyes were competitive at home against Indiana. Iowa defensively at home in conference, allowing 2.7 yards per rush with 5.5 yards per pass attempt. They rushed for 4.7 yards a carry at home against the Big Ten. The Hawkeyes, while 7-3 the spread at home against the Big Ten, will take Iowa here at plus 6.5. Kansas and Arizona going off here on Saturday. Kansas now 5-4 with a 38-21 home victory against Oklahoma State. Jayhawks had a poor passing performance in the game, rushed for 232 yards for nearly 6 yards a carry. Defensively, they limited the Cowboys to 2.3 yards per rush, 244 yards passing for nearly 8 yards per pass attempt. Jalen Daniels here, 13 of 19 for 110 yards with 2 touchdowns. Arizona is 5-3 after a 52-17 road win at Colorado. The Wildcats gained 417 yards with really good work in the run and pass. They limited the Buffs' passing game and allowed 129 yards rushing for 3.1 yards a carry. Noah Fafita here, 11 of 19 passing for 213 yards and 4 touchdowns. Kansas on the road rushing for 2.3 yards a carry and allowing 277 yards rushing for 6.6 yards per carry. Arizona at home is passing for 261 yards with over 7 yards per pass attempt. On defense at home in conference, they hold quarterbacks to 59% completion rate. Kansas has failed to cover 3 straight. We'll take Arizona here, minus 4.5. Syracuse and Miami for Saturday. Syracuse fell to 3-6 after their 27-10 home defeat to North Carolina. The Orange had really poor passing performance and rushed for 108 yards for 3.4 yards a carry. On defense, they allowed 4.9 yards a carry with 216 yards passing for 11.5 yards per pass attempt. Joseph Filardi, 4 of 18 passing for 39 yards. Miami dropping to 6-2, a 26-20 road defeat to SMU. Hurricanes had good movement in the passing game and rushed for 159 yards for 3.9 yards a carry. They limited the Mustangs to 23 rushing yards and 365 yards passing for 8.1 yards per pass attempt. Carson Beck here, 26 of 38 passing for 274 yards with 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. Syracuse has struggled to find a capable backup after losing Angeli for the year. They look to a true freshman Filardi here who was way down the depth chart. Orange has gotten really poor quarterback play, of course, since the change. Well, since the injury, as we said to Angeli. The Orange on the road in conference allowing 72% completion rate with 329 yards passing per game. Miami at home in conference throwing for 238 yards per game, 72% completion rate. The Orange has failed to cover 4 straight. We'll take Miami here, minus 28.5. Iowa State and TCU going off here on Saturday. Iowa State now 5-4 after a 24-19 home defeat to Arizona State. The Cyclones were inefficient in the passing game and rushed for 150 yards for 4.7 yards a carry. On defense, they limited the Sun Devils through the air but surrendered 290 yards rushing for 6.3 yards per carry. Rocco Beck here, 18 of 36 passing for 186 yards with a touchdown and pick. TCU now 6-2 with a 23-17 road win at West Virginia. The Horned Frogs had movement in the passing game and rushed for 96 yards for 2.9 yards a carry. They limited the Mountaineers to 41 rushing yards with 301 yards passing for 7.3 yards per pass attempt. Josh Hoover in the game, 24 of 39 passing for 247 yards and a touchdown. Iowa State dropped both road games in Big 12 play. Their defense on the road in conference allowing 5.1 yards per rush, but 247 yards passing for 9.4 yards per pass attempt. TCU at home in conference completing 70% of their passes for nearly 8 yards per pass attempt and defends the run well. They hold opposing quarterbacks at home to 53% completion rate. Pick here TCU -7. Duke and UConn going off on Saturday. At Duke now 5-3 with their 46-45 road win in Clemson. That was a wild game there. The Blue Devils rushed for 3.5 yards a carry and effective in the passing game. They allowed nearly 5 yards per rush to the Tigers with 385 yards passing for 10.7 yards per pass attempt. Darian Mensah here, 27 of 41 passing for 361 yards with 4 touchdowns. UConn now 6-3, a 38-19 home victory against UAB. The Huskies had good performance in the passing game and rushed for 107 yards for 3.5 yards a carry. Defensively, they allowed 4.5 yards per rush with 218 passing yards for 6 yards per pass attempt. Joe Fagnano, 23 of 30 passing for 267 yards and 4 touchdowns. It's back-to-back road games for the Blue Devils. They have won and covered 3 straight on the road. UConn has won all 4 home games. The Blue Devils on the road allowing 282 yards passing for 8.7 yards per pass attempt. They put up 39 points per game on the road with good offensive numbers. UConn at home averaging 45 points per game with 71% completion rate for 9.2 yards per pass attempt. The Blue Devils 10-5 the over on the road. Pick here Duke and UConn over 65.5. Auburn and Vanderbilt going off here on Saturday. Auburn fell to 4-5 after their 10-3 home defeat to Kentucky. The Tigers had a poor passing performance and rushed for 118 yards for 3 yards a carry. On defense, they limited the Wildcats to 2.5 yards per rush with 161 yards passing for 5.5 yards per pass attempt. Ashton Daniels here, 13 of 28 passing for 108 yards with a pick. He rushed for 48 yards in the game. Vanderbilt drops to 7-2. A 34-31 road defeat to Texas. The Commodores had really good passing performance but rushed for only 58 yards. On defense, they held the Longhorns to 3.7 yards a carry with 328 yards passing for 9.9 yards per pass attempt. Diego Pavia hit 27 of 38 passing for 365 yards with 3 touchdowns. He rushed for 43 yards and a score. Vanderbilt has won all 2 home games in conference. Auburn dropped 2 of 3 on the road against the SEC. The Tigers on the road in conference rushing for only 3.2 yards a carry with poor quarterback play. They allowed 9.3 yards per pass attempt against the SEC on the road. Vanderbilt at home against the SEC allowing 17 points per game with 6.6 yards per pass attempt. They're rushing for 5.3 yards a carry and averaging 7 yards per pass attempt at home against the conference. Pick here Vandy here -6.5. Kennesaw State and New Mexico State going off on Saturday. New Mexico State here hosting. We got Kennesaw State now 6-2 after a 33-20 home victory against UTEP. The Owls were inefficient through the air and rushed for 150 yards for 3.8 yards a carry. Defensively, they allowed 3 yards per rush with 160 yards passing for 5.3 yards per pass attempt. Amari Odom in the game, 6 of 10 passing for 86 yards. New Mexico State now 3-5 after a 35-16 road defeat to Western Kentucky. The Aggies had a poor passing game, rushed for 2.4 yards a carry. They allowed 3.4 yards per rush to the Hilltoppers with 301 yards passing for 7.3 yards per pass attempt. Logan 5 here, 13 of 39 passing for 110 yards and a pick. Kennesaw State in their lone road conference game beat FIU 45-26. New Mexico State 1-1 at home in Conference USA with a 7-point loss to Missouri State. Kennesaw State against the conference rushed for 4.8 yards a carry and getting good quarterback play. They defend the pass well in Conference USA play. Mexico State in conference rushed for 3.1 yards a carry and getting inaccurate quarterback play. Their pass defense has been poor against Conference USA. Pick here, Kennesaw State minus 9.5. Georgia State and Coastal Carolina. This one for Saturday. We got Georgia State now 1-7 after a 38-31 home defeat to South Alabama. The Panthers had movement in the passing game and rushed for 199 yards for 5.4 yards a carry. On defense, they allowed 468 yards to the Jaguars by poorly defending the run and pass. Cameron Brown here, 19-33 passing for 241 yards with 4 touchdowns and a pick. Coastal Carolina now 5-3, a 44-27 home victory against Marshall. Chanticleers were efficient through the air and rushed for 214 yards for 4.8 yards a carry. Offensively, they defended the pass well and allowed 279 yards rushing for 6.2 yards a carry. Samari Collier here, 8 of 20 passing for 196 yards with 2 touchdowns and a pick. He rushed for 75 yards and 2 scores. We got Coastal Carolina here 2-0 at home against the Sun Belt, winning both games by wide margin. Georgia State 0-4 facing the Sun Belt, losing their road game by 17. Georgia State on the road allowing 6.5 yards a carry with 9.9 yards per pass attempt and have been inefficient in the passing game. The Chanticleers at home in the Sun Belt rushing for 5.2 yards a carry and throwing for 7.2 yards per pass attempt. Panthers 5-8 to the spread as an underdog. Pick here, Coastal Carolina here, minus 7.5. Stanford and North Carolina for Saturday. Stanford now 3-6 after a 35-20 home defeat to Pittsburgh. The Cardinal rushed for only 10 yards and had movement in the passing game. On defense, they allowed 466 yards to the Panthers by poorly defending the run and pass. Elijah Brown here 10 of 14 passing for 108 yards with a touchdown. North Carolina 3-5 after their 27-10 road win at Syracuse. The Tar Heels were efficient through the air and rushed for 209 yards for 4.9 yards a carry. On defense, they held the Orange to 39 passing yards with 108 yards rushing for 3.4 yards a carry. Gio Lopez, 15 of 19 passing for 216 yards and 2 touchdowns. Stanford benched their starting quarterback and goes with a redshirt freshman in Brown here. The Cardinal in their 3 road games have lost all 3 by 24 or greater points. North Carolina is showing improvement defensively and got good performance at quarterback last week. Pick here North Carolina minus 7.5. Washington and Wisconsin for Saturday. We got Washington here 6-2 after a 42-25 home victory against Illinois. The Huskies gained 449 yards with effective rushing and passing. They limited the fight Illini through the air and allowed 138 yards rushing for 4.8 yards a carry. Denman Williams here 26 of 33 passing for 280 yards with 4 touchdowns. He rushed for 66 yards in the game. Wisconsin dropping to 2-6 after a 21-7 road defeat to Oregon. The Badgers were horrible through the air and rushed for 110 yards for 3.8 yards a carry. On defense, they limited the Ducks through the air and allowed 203 yards rushing for 4.5 yards a carry. Hunter Simons here, 7 of 21 passing for 86 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Wisconsin has struggled at quarterback after the injury to Billy Edwards. It is 6 straight losses here. Washington on the road in conference has averaged 15.5 points per game with 2.6 yards per rush, 6.6 yards per pass attempt. Here, the Badgers have been held to 10 or fewer points in their past 5 games, going under in all of them. Pick here Washington and Wisconsin under 45. For more free pick videos, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Lots of free picks on our channel for myself and team of cappers here at TonySpicks.com. It is a great channel to subscribe to. Hit us up with that like, that thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. Then visit our site, TonySpicks.com, for our best bets. Our premium plays are there. And remember, our promo code TonyT at checkout will knock off that 15%. The link is in the description to get signed up. That'll do it for now. I'm Tony T, and we'll talk with you later.